have now made 100 episodes of our van life trip. This started over a year ago, and I can't believe how many places and how many crazy things we've done. So we thought for the 100th episode, we would answer some of the questions that you guys ask all the time.
So we put out on social media, on Instagram and on Twitter, asking for questions, and we got back a ton of responses, so we're going to try to go through as many as possible. So if you're not following us on Instagram and Twitter, that's where we post kind of about what we're currently doing, so where we currently are, or things like asking for questions. So you should follow us on there if you want to meet up with us or you want to give us recommendations, because once we have been there in our YouTube videos, we're usually already gone.
The Van Without a Plan asks, how long did it take you to settle into your new lifestyle? Was there a eureka moment where it all clicked into place? Any tips for making the transition from house to van?
So I don't know if there was necessarily a eureka moment for me, but I definitely, first moved into the van, we were still in Ottawa and we weren't moving at all. And I think that living in a van, stationary in one place, is not for me. A lot of people do it, but to me, the reason that I live in a small space is to trade out the fact that I get to go to amazing places. Once we started finally moving, that was really nice, but then it was really cold. So honestly, I started feeling a lot better when we got to warmer weather and I could actually get out and shoot and work on my artwork, and there's a completely different shift in my mood when I'm in the winter and when I'm in nice weather.
For us, it was really about being nomadic and also being in charge of that nomadic spirit so that we could go where we wanted, when we wanted, and we didn't really have to stick to the plan at all. We could just do what we wanted and what felt right. And once we started doing that, everything got a lot better. The Great Jake asks, how do you guys think your trip would have been different if you hadn't had Vantastrophe? Was the high top a sort of blessing in disguise for Simon's height, room for two of you plus camp, and all around ease of living? I think when it comes to van dwelling and any kind of like nomadic, tiny house, anything like that, there's like a hierarchy of how nomadic you want to be versus how comfortable you want to be. And I think our van is fairly close to as nomadic as you could be. Our old van might have been more nomadic because it was lighter and because it was smaller. It would have been able to get into more off-roading situations than this one would have been. And even more than that, there's four-wheel options too, which are even smaller yet. So I think there's a trade-off between how portable you can really be and how comfortable you can be. So I would say that this van is definitely more comfortable than our previous one. And for us, that is probably a little bit more important. But the other van had the upside of we could have gone a lot more places. There were a lot of instances in the desert, for instance, where that old van would have gone down no problem. It's cheaper to fix than this one, and little issues like that.
Yeah. And I'm very glad that I can stand up inside my van.
It's a big bonus for sure.
On Instagram, Sean JVM asks, if you could change some things about the van, what would they be?
So I really like the couch thing. We've talked about this before. Couches are like an integral part of a home as far as I'm concerned, and having a nice, comfortable one would really be a huge upgrade over the situation we've got there. So that's an upgrade that we want to make very soon, for sure.
There's supposed to be a mod we can get to be able to make the passenger seat in the front swivel so you can face the back. So that would be really nice to be able to have that as an extra seating option.
Every little downside we have is a trade-off for an upside we have, and I'm pretty happy with the way things worked out. I think I'm a firm believer in using the best thing that you could find at that moment. I think that just like cameras, the best camera you have is the one you have with you. Just like vans, like the best van we could possibly get was the one that was available to us at an affordable price at the right time. That's just the way it plays out. I mean, I'm not a Ford guy or Dodge guy or Volkswagen guy or anything like that. It was just a matter of what fell into our lap at the right point and the right time. I wasn't very picky.
Hi Bree asks, do you remember the moment, individually or together, when you decided to commit to living in a van? Was it everything you thought it'd be? Any advice looking back? Would you do anything differently?
We just did a huge documentary with Fair Companies, and we talk about this extensively about how the van life hashtag, especially on Instagram, is kind of like a sales pitch. There was a moment when we were lying in bed, and it was soon after we had moved in together. Shelby and I were going through Instagram, we were looking at the hashtag van life and that sales pitch that I was mentioning, the sales pitch of all these beautiful places and these people just free to roam and see everything, absolutely everything. Because that's been a big struggle for me. I like travel, but I like immersing myself and being able to see and experience everything, not leave anything out. And I mean, as impossible as that is, it really looked like it was possible from those photos on Instagram and from the stories we were hearing. So we wanted to do that, and been looking for a long time a way of traveling that would be economical and also feasible to see as much as we wanted to see, and this just made sense.
But I think there was also an actual moment when our old van burned down. It was kind of like a way out for us. Like, our van burned down, we could just stop trying to do this at all, and we could just get an apartment and never think about it again. So I think that, like, having the van burn down and then realizing, okay, is this actually what I want to do? Because now I have a way out, and now, I tried and I kind of failed, and I could just quit. But we had to make that step and say, no, this is what we want to do.
Yeah. Deb Fat to Fit also asks, how do you get your mail? How do we get our mail, Shelby?
So when we were traveling through the U.S., we basically knew that we were going to stop at my parents' place, and so we've basically been sending everything there.
Twitter. Campaigning Car Joa on Twitter asks, have you ever thought about getting another van in the future? If so, what kind of van would you get?
I haven't. You probably have.
I've toyed around with the idea of different vans, but what I think it comes down to is the main reason we're traveling in a van is because it's very cost efficient. So selling the van, building a new one wouldn't exactly be cost efficient. For us, the main thing right now is just keeping ours running for as long as we need to have it running for. Valerie on Twitter asks, what kind of art does Shelby make? Can she show us some?
My artwork is, I do mostly photography and video work, but I also integrate a lot of craft. So knitting, sewing, beading. I mean, I think that most artists are exploring their identity, or it's an autobiography, it's a reflection of who they are. So to say that I'm exploring my identity, I guess, is a bit trite. But the difference is that I don't pretend that I'm doing something else. My artwork is about me. I don't make political artwork or artwork about other people, because I think that the only thing that I can genuinely and authentically show and talk about is me. So my artwork really has to do with my identity as being Mohawk and Canadian and of European descent, and sort of what it means to straddle the lines between those identities. Avalanche Kid asks, so what's the scoop on you and Shelby? Where did you meet? How long have you been together?
This is a bit of a controversy, actually.
Start with how long have we been together?
We've been together for 3 years. Since last October.
We've been together 3 years October, yeah.
3 years October.
Yeah. So we have like a story of how we met, and then we have a story of how we met that we tell people.
Yeah.
Are we gonna tell them the real story?
Yeah, we should tell them the real story. But first of all, the fake story is I used to run the Carleton Photography Club, because Carleton doesn't have enough photography department for whatever reason. And so it was a fairly successful club, fairly popular, and it was a very plausible theory that Shelby would have met me through that club. However, in reality...
Sorry, people who don't know, especially people in my family. Sorry.
Sorry, your mom specifically.
Sorry.
We actually met online dating on the cheap and cheesy site of Plenty of Fish.
Yeah.
Shelby thought I was fake because my photos, I look like a model. That was the words exactly.
His photos look like stock images off of Google. They looked like too good because they were taken in a studio.
Too good.
And I'm sorry, but like, no guys have studio photos as their pictures on the dating website. They're usually like selfies of them shirtless in the mirror. So I was convinced he was fake, and then we talked for a little bit, and I was sort of rude to him because, I'm a photographer. I'm like, great, everyone thinks they're a photographer. So I asked him like real questions about photography, and I'm like, oh, he actually does sound like he knows what he's talking about. And then he sends me his website. I'm like, oh shit, he's a real person. I'm so mean. Anyway,
we met at we were supposed to meet at a bar first. That didn't happen. We were supposed to meet at one coffee shop, and then last minute we changed it to the coffee shop around the corner from Shelby's house so that she couldn't back out of it. That was my theory. I was like, listen, I gotta meet this girl. like I'm gonna pick a spot that's so close that even if she hates my guts, she's still gonna show up. And
it was so close that I watched him walk by.
Yeah,
on the way to the coffee
and then
shop,
we went there, and then in typical Shelby fashion, she warms up to you slowly. So she was curled up in her little sweater,
like I am right now.
just
I'm
like
cold,
now,
okay?
and judging real hard. It was a pretty brutal first date, I think. But sure enough, she opened up right after that, and it's been nothing but sunshine and lollipops since then.
For coffee, like Simon said, we went out for coffee. Well, we actually got tea because I don't drink coffee. Sorry to Simon. He drank tea with me.
Yeah.
And then
First and only time.
I was like so nervous because I'm really kind of shy. So I was really nervous, but apparently that came off as being mean. And then I got home and I remember this. I like laid on my roommate's bed, who's my best friend, and I laid down. I was like, oh my god, he hated me. He's never gonna talk to me again. The next night, he invited me over for dinner, and then we just hung out for like 2 weeks straight, and then we were dating.
It was a little tossy at first. We wasn't sure it was going to work out, and then I introduced her to Champ. That sealed the deal.
Yeah.
I made her spaghetti, and I introduced her to Champ, and the rest is history.
Online Doggo?
Online_Doggo.
Online Doggo asks about how much money does it take to start the hashtag van life?
For a lot of people, it takes a very distinct lack of money to start the hashtag van life, because a lot of people, the truth is, a lot of people move into their vehicles out of financial disparity. And that's a really big reality that we don't want to sugarcoat in any way, because this is the life for a lot of people that is a life of desperation, a life of necessity. And so to say that you should save a certain amount for a generic certain amount, I don't believe in that. I believe that you should just make a budget, figure out what your gas mileage is, how far you want to go, because that's the real big decider.
How much you can afford and how you want to live.
Right. So we've heard people doing this kind of travel in like a really old beat up Prius, because apparently you can just leave them on and they'll turn the engine on every once in a while to recharge the battery. It's a really cool system I didn't know about. We've heard of people, we've met some Germans who were doing it for $500 in an old beat up Dodge with nothing in it. It really depends on what kind of trip you want to have.
So to continue on that, Richie Yendel asks, what kind of ongoing budget do you have? So, well, I think I'm more budgety than you are.
Yeah, I'm an impulse shopper.
Simon calls himself financially optimistic.
Yeah.
So, which means he'll come up with an idea and he's like, this is going to make me so much money, it's going to be so great. But I'm a little more
realistic.
Yeah. So I set myself a budget when we left on the trip of this is all in Canadian, of $1,000 a month to spend, to live and whatever. So I set myself a $1,000 limit, and right now we have about a month left, and I have $800 left of my budget. So I did pretty good. So I would also say the one thing we should have done is set aside like $2,000 or something that was just for van repairs that we wouldn't touch unless something like that happened.
Yeah, and you have to remember too, that depends on your standard of everything, right? Like if you had a total beater van and you don't care about its longevity at all, you can really get by pretty cheaply on repairs, especially. Like I didn't have to fix my catalytic converter. I could have beat it with a hammer and it would have worked. I didn't have to upgrade the tires. We don't have to fix this windshield crack we got going on right now. Those are things that aren't necessary, definitely safer for us to fix, but they're not necessary. So all of this stuff is flexible. It really depends on who you are and what your standards of living and what your standards of safety and all those other things are. Because for some people, financial necessity drives everything. So Oz the Hummingbird asks, do you have debt that you are tethered to despite rejecting much of the traditional social construct of money otherwise? If so, how do you manage this while maintaining a functional and fulfilling van lifestyle?
The one reason that I think we're really able to do this because we're young is that neither of us have debt from university, which has really helped us, because I know a lot of people in Canada and the US come out of university with $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, upwards debt. and we don't have that, so that has really helped us to be able to do this. And
especially in the US. Like, had we had debt, we probably would have had to stay in Canada. We would have probably still been able to afford this lifestyle of traveling around, but we would have had to continue working, and because of that, we would have had to stay in Canada because of visas are impossible to get to work in the US as a Canadian.
I know a lot of people who are still paying off their debt 10 years out of school, so I think we're really lucky. And then other than that, the only debt that we really have is like the money on my visa, which is like $500. That's like
Totally
our
feasible
biggest
amounts
debt
of
right now. So, I mean, I'm really into not having debt. I know that's not an option for a lot of people, but when I was in university, I really didn't want to have debt, so I applied for every scholarship, every bursary. I worked 5 jobs. Like, I really didn't want to have debt. I didn't want to be tied down to that. And yeah, I know that's not an option for a lot of people, but for me, that really worked out.
Being debt free has been like a huge goal of both of us. We really like I love prepaid plans and everything. I don't like owing anything to anyone, just because I like the freedom of being able to change directions at any moment, of being unhappy with something and just changing it. So I think that's something that we're going to continue looking into. We want to look into a lot of alternative lifestyles in the future, tiny houses, homesteading, all this other stuff, to try and stay away from having debt in the future as well, because it's a big stress, and it's a big stress that we do a lot better not having in our lives. Deb Fatto Fit. Deb Fat Too Fit? Deb Fat Too Fit. I am curious about the condensation. Did you ever figure out a way besides freezing yourselves out to fix that? I've actually been looking into 12 volt solid state condensers. They use Peltier devices and 2 kind of CPU coolers. One that's all slick for the cold side and one that's just regular with a fan on it for the hot side. They run at about 30 watts. So on the really cold nights, we'd be able to run that probably all night. And I don't know in real world applications how much that would help, but I'm pretty confident that if we can get like half a liter of water out of the air in our tiny little van, that would be huge.
Valerie asked another question. What editing software do you use to edit your YouTube videos?
Because we come from the background of photographers, we've been using Lightroom for years, so Premiere just makes sense.
Now Valerie had a third question, and she asked, what are the YouTube channels you must watch when they come up on your feed?
We've basically got like 3 different categories. We love a lot of vloggers, Casey Neistat, Ben Brown, Fun for Louie. We also love a lot of van dwellers and travelers, Gone with the Winds, Nomadic Fanatic, Wizard's Eye. There's loads of them. And then we also love like a lot of educational channels. So we watch all of the Vlog Brothers, Crash Course, all the PBS Idea Channel, PBS Game Show, PBS Great Idea, all these other things PBS has. I really love watching Roadkill. It's one of my favorites, but I can't really convince Shelby to sit down and watch an episode of that with me. I also really love Mighty Car Mods and Regular Car Reviews. Those are my automotive favorite channels.
We'll link all of these in the description so you can check them out. When Simon and I first started dating, I didn't really watch any YouTube at all, I'm gonna be honest. But having him around, he was kind of always watching it, and then I started getting interested. Oh, what's going on in that person's life? Like, what are they doing now? So I really like watching Casey Neistat. I like his vlogs. I like watching his interaction with his little girl and with his wife. I really love the Vlog Brothers now. So much so that I'll like read and go see all of John Green's movies and like read his books and go see the movies about his books, even though I don't necessarily like them that much. I just love John Green so much that I want to support him. I don't know. So, and like all the stuff that Hank does is amazing. So, yeah, I love the Vlog Brothers. They do a lot of really awesome things for the community, and they speak out about a lot of things like sexism and racism, and they're really awesome, positive vloggers. I love them for that. And then I really love the Idea Channel one too. There's a few of the educational ones that I really like.
Yeah.
I like when they take like really big ideas, like philosophy or something, or
Correct.
whatever. Yeah, there's the 8-bit philosophy one too. That was just interesting.
Oh, yeah.
But when they take really big ideas and they explain something with something really basic, I really like that. Or when they take something really basic and they really think about it. Like I remember Idea Channel did one about if nail art should be considered art, and I was like, what? No. And then I watched it and I was like, oh shit, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So we really like those videos. And then I also really like watching some of the people that we know. Like we always like to watch Exploring Alternatives videos, because it's fun to be able to see where they are, what they're doing, even though they don't do necessarily the vlog style all the time. They're usually interviewing other people, but it's still fun to be, oh, that's where they are now, that's cool, and to be able to support people that you know and that you know are awesome.
Richard Scott asks on Twitter, shooting film on the road, are you developing it on the road as well? And if so, are you finding it challenging? Hashtag film forever. Shelby.
So, we have gotten film developed only once since we've been on the road, and we did it in Vegas, and to be honest, it was very expensive. And then I've also been shooting Polaroids, so they develop instantly, which is great. And we do have the technology to develop black and white film in the van.
Mm-hmm.
We brought our canisters, and we brought some of the chemicals with us to develop black and white in the van. We haven't done it yet, so we might do that actually.
Or we might get rid of it. It's
Yeah,
one of those things we just haven't used it yet, so we're not sure that we need to keep it.
Well, the thing is, when we were in our apartment, we would always develop our black and white film. We always took the color in to be processed somewhere else, but we always developed our own black and white, and that was fine, and that was great. We'd hang it all up in our shower to dry. I don't know if it would be very easy to do it in the van, although there's lots of people who are doing. So.
Yeah. Corey Rattering wants to know about our tattoos and the thought process that went into them. So I think we could start first of all with the tattoos we got together.
Oh yeah, so
this is my first ever tattoo. I have a rangefinder camera.
And I have my medium format Yashica twin lens camera.
Yeah, and so a friend of ours stick and poke this, which is like a manual way of tattooing, onto our arms in the same spots.
Yeah.
So actually you're supposed to be on this side.
Yeah.
Right. That's how it usually goes. Anyway, we thought it was cool and thought it was cute, but not so cute that if we ever broke up, it would be horrible. That was the compromise, and I just kind of went into it.
I think I wanted to push you to get your first tattoo.
Yeah, that was a huge part of it.
That was nice. It was a good way for him to get his first tattoo, because stick and pokes honestly don't hurt at all. And it was one of our friends from Ottawa who does them, and she just came over and we had coffee and she gave us a tattoo. So it was a good way for Simon to be introduced to tattoos.
Yeah. So I tend to really overthink my tattoos. I personally designed this guy right here, and all I wanted the tattoo artist to do was just follow the lines I had already drawn. So I'm not big on letting somebody else's creativity end up on my body, which is ironic because I thought it'd always be the other way. But yeah, no, this one right here is the 50mm 1.8. It's my favorite lens to use. It's a schematic of it, and then I just joined it up with the lens mounting points. I want to do a series of line arts all the way up my arm of all the different tools that I use frequently, but it's really tough to incorporate like V8 engine without being cheesy, so I haven't figured that one out yet.
So he likes to overthink, yeah, his tattoos,
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so my tattoos, I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I have 7. So my first tattoo I got when I was 17. It's the one on my foot. It's of a turtle, and that is my Mohawk clan. So I went and got tattoos with my mom when I was 17. She wanted to get a tattoo for the first time, so she has a little dream catcher on her leg, and I got a turtle, and then it says Aganistana in it, which means my mother in Mohawk. That was my only color tattoo. My next tattoo, on my ribs, I have the word create. I got that when I got into university for art, actually, and I decided that being creative was always going to be a really big and important thing in my life, so I got that tattoo on my ribs. The next tattoo I got was, I think, my stick and pokes.
Yeah,
so we got the stick and pokes together was my next tattoo, and then I have 2 other ones that Anna also gave me.
Got a little addicted to the stick and pokes.
Yeah, the stick and pokes are really fun. So on my arm I have a constellation, it's Gemini. And then on my chest, I have the female symbol. I'm a feminist, that's why I got that one. On my ankle, I have the 4 sacred medicines. So it's cedar, sage, tobacco, and sweetgrass. Tattooed on my back is of the moon cycles, the 13 moon cycles that I got when we were in Florida. And the moon cycles are really an important thing in a lot of Aboriginal traditions because the moon influences all the water, it influences all the seasons, and women have an important relationship to water and to the moon.
Okay, Iketchem asks, hi, from Florida. Who was the one with the idea to start the van life? You or Shelby? This guy. This guy right here. Carrington asks, what do you miss most about Canada and what do you miss least?
I think that everything we miss is food.
Yeah, we miss a lot of the food.
We're constantly talking about the food. Not that we can't get a lot of
really
really
cool
good food here. Friends.
We miss
family.
our friends, family. We miss a lot of the Canadian attitudes. We miss the lack of guns, the way people talk. It seems so small and benign, but after you've been gone for so long, it really kind of starts to build up a nostalgia to see and to talk to people who speak and communicate the same way you do. It's weird how that really makes you feel homesick. And we give Canada such a hard time, or at least we used to before we left, and now we really do miss it quite a lot.
I think we miss some water too. Like we were just talking to somebody here in Texas the other day about going to a state park and having it not be built around water is so weird for us, because you go to any national park, provincial park in Canada, and it's built around Lake Ontario, it's built around Lake Superior, like it's built around water, and you go there and you go swimming, or you go there and you go boating, or you go there and you go canoeing. And here there's a lot like built around the desert, which is totally cool and totally different landscape, but I miss water. I grew up on the water. I love the water.
Yeah, I think conversely, actually, the things that we miss the least, we love the desert here. I mean, it's been a real change of everything, but like the desert's awesome, especially for van dwelling, for camping of any kind. The desert's just so much fun. We won't be missing like the cold winters.
I don't miss snow.
No, not even a little. No. So we think that this will probably be a permanent part of our lifestyle, is traveling in the winters. We're really falling in love with that. That has been immensely huge, to be able to be excited about going home, because you know that when you do, the snow will be gone. Sarag_buddy asks, what has been your favorite spot or part so far?
Ugh.
That's a doozy.
I think first my favorite spot, okay, before we did New Mexico, my favorite spot was Oregon.
Yeah.
Like driving along the Oregon coast to California, Big Sur, like just like you don't feel like you're in North America, cliffs and water, and it's beautiful. And then after New Mexico, I would have to say Santa Fe was my favorite.
Yeah. I think I love the West Coast. It is a real big shock, especially when we first got to BC, just seeing like the rainforests of British Columbia I'd never seen anything like it. And then getting to Southern California and going inland, I was just so excited for the desert. And seeing those first few mountain ranges roll by was just awesome. I fell in love with it instantly. But again, like Shelby, we got too close to Santa Fe, and that was a sweet spot. I really liked the Santa Fe, and the whole area between Albuquerque and Santa Fe was just fantastic. Meeting the people, hot springs, mountains, snow, food. Oh God, I can't. It was awesome. It was just really, really great. Okay, pause it.
Hopefully.